What would you like for breakfast, Johnny? Muffins. Sexy airplane muffin. Lesbian clown muffin. A lazy grifter muffin. Sex and disabilities muffin. Contract spouse muffin. Freaky doppelganger muffin. Gollum meets Lana Del Rey muffin. All right, guess who's here? Hey friends, it's Caitlin and Tishka here from Spill the Reads. Welcome to yet another very glamorous part of my apartment that you haven't seen before. Today we're doing my May wrap-up. I'm going to talk about the 7 very interesting books that I've read this month. I gave these from 5 stars to 2 stars, so I'm going to talk a little bit about each one, tell you what I liked or didn't like about it. No spoilers. So let's get into it. I might also share what I plan to read this month. We will see. The first book I read in May was The Guest by Emma Cline. This had been on my TBR for a while, but I had just finished watching the newest season of The White Lotus, and then I saw all these like bookish articles about like what to read after you watch The White Lotus. And this book was brought up because of like the whole like rich people vibes. And so I ended up listening to this as an audiobook. Fantastic narration, by the way. I love the first half, and then I went on vacation and I came back and I listened to the second half, and it was weird. I just like didn't really like it anymore. So I gave this book 3 stars. It is about this kind of like hot, lazy grifter. Her name is Alex, and she's like 22, and basically she's been like living off like rich guys, just kind of like using them as like sugar daddies. But the thing is that what makes it interesting, like she's really good at kind of like seeing what people want and giving them exactly that. Like she's kind of like a chameleon. And so basically she's been like living with this guy, Simon, and she goes with him to kind of, it's like the Hamptons or something like that. And he kind of like gets tired of her and says like, let's go on a break. And the thing is that like she's burned like all of her bridges and she doesn't really have anywhere to go. And like all of her eggs have been in like this one basket. And so she decides that she's just going to kind of like wait it out by staying like on this island or whatever, and like going to different people's houses and just pretending that like she knows them, like that, oh yeah, I'm like so and so. And the book is just kind of like this meandering story of her like pretending to know different people and just kind of like bullshitting everyone and like somehow managing to fool people. And so she is just like waiting a week before Simon, the guy that like broke up with her, like has this big party, and she thinks that she's gonna like win him back. Yeah, a very unlikable character, kind of slow, but it was like interesting at first to like, because you're like kind of in suspense, like hearing her say a bunch of lies to people, and yet like they just like always end up believing it. And so it was kind of interesting to like be like, oh my gosh, like who's gonna call her out on this? Very good writing. Yeah, I just, it just got boring for me after a while. Let me know if you have read this or what your thoughts are on it. The next book that I read in May was the one that I referred to as Gollum meets Lana Del Rey, The Unrequited by Saffron A. Kent. You guys should see Tishka right now. He's like playing with himself. Okay, so I had heard about this book in some Bookstagram post about like stalker dark romances, and this is supposed to be like a female stalker story with like this really unhinged protagonist, and the guy that she's stalking, this like hot poetry professor, is supposed to like actually kind of like fall in love with her. I don't know. It sounded interesting, and it definitely was, but it wasn't really what I expected. It basically starts off showing you just how unhinged she is, because she she falls into obsession and she falls really hard. And she's recovering at the beginning of the book from an obsession with her stepbrother, you guys. Not stepbrother, brother by blood, but like by marriage. And so you kind of get an idea of like just kind of like how she is. And so she's kind of like trying to get over her stepbrother. And she follows this guy around in like a bookstore and she ends up in his poetry class. So she starts taking his poetry class, and well, she actually learns that they have quite a bit in common. They're both kind of like bonding over the fact that like they suffer from unrequited love. And she also starts like using writing to kind of like work out her emotions. Yeah, it's a very morally gray book. She's always kind of like trying to decide like what to do, like to be good or to be bad. And that's what made me think of like Gollum. Like, you know how like in Lord of the Rings when Gollum and Smeagol are like having like this like inner battle of like should they kill Sam and Frodo or like keep helping them try to get to Mordor. So it made me think of that because she'll be like, oh, like we need him, we want him. And then she's like, no, we can't. And everything is done with Lana Del Rey in the background. So if you're a Lana fan, in particular of the album Born to Die, we like reference a lot of Lana Del Rey's songs like Blue Jeans, Dark Paradise. So I was like a huge fan of that because I've probably listened to that album like 1,000 times. So I got like a kick out of that. Where this book kind of went wrong for me, I think it just started to become more about the spice and less about the plot, and I kind of just like disconnected. The spice was also like not really my favorite. Like I don't know, like I kind of detached after it got like really gratuitous and kind of awkward. Like I'm someone where like if there are certain words, I kind of just like tune out. Like, let me just say, if you use the word cream in a spicy scene, doesn't matter if it's an adjective, a noun, like God forbid people use it as a verb. Like, I'm just like checked out. Like, I'm not there anymore. So yeah, started off really well, was kind of over it by the end. So I guess I would give it something like 3 stars. I know a lot of people like live for this book online. I've seen a lot of like fan art. But yeah, Tishka is loving the scratchies. Let me know what you guys think of this setup. Do you like being in this room? How is the sound in here? Do you like what I've done like with the tech today? Let me know. Okay, let's keep going on. Okay, you guys, I know I've already talked to death about Sky Daddy because I just talked about it for like 30 minutes in my previous book review. But yeah, this is like my favorite book of the year. It's about a woman who, I'll just be really brief about it. You can watch the full book review if you want to know more. But it's about a woman who is sexually obsessed with airplanes. She sees them as like sentient beings with like feelings and souls, and yeah, she prefers them to human men, and she wants to be chosen by an airplane, which for her means that like the airplane would crash with her inside of it. This is obviously very dark and unhinged, but it's very funny and surprisingly like quite moving. I cried at the end. And for me it was really a story about like female friendship, which I know it's kind of like hard to imagine, but I highly recommend it. My book review has a lot of like samples of the writing, which was like the best part of this book. It just had such good writing. So highly recommend this one. This was my one 5-star read of the month. My next book that I read in May is Stop Me If You've Heard This One by Kristen Arnett. Where to start with this book, essentially about a lesbian clown. So happy Pride Month. This is definitely a book you could read during Pride Month. It talks a lot about like the experience of being a queer person in Florida, which can be kind of tough, according to this book. It's about this clown named Cherry. She is just hustling, trying to like work on her craft. She loves clowning. She likes making people laugh. Like it's just like her biggest passion. And the only thing that can really derail this, like her trying to really succeed as a clown is like her uncontrollable horniness. I feel like this was done for like comedic relief, but like it's just literally like on every single page she's like lusting after someone, and in particular she's really into like older moms because she has like mommy issues. This book could occasionally be kind of uncomfortable, but it is pretty funny. I loved learning about the process of like getting ready as a clown, like the makeup and the outfits and stuff like that. And like all the different like things she does as a clown. Like, you know, she's just trying to get by and like save money to go to auditions and stuff. So she'll go to like, she'll do birthday parties and like events and all this kind of stuff. So it's like nothing I've really read before. And basically she meets this like really hot magician named Margot the Magnificent. And they start kind of like getting the idea of maybe putting on a show together. And there is like a little bit of romance, but I wanted to see more. Like they barely show you anything. It's very like closed door. Um, yeah. And then the ending is just really strange. Like this book had so many interesting ingredients, but like the overall execution was just not as good as I had hoped. But what I kind of got out of it was it seems like uh, Florida is like a tough place to live as a queer person, but I felt like the author was trying to show us that like queer people are still like thriving there despite kind of like pushback. Yeah. What can I say? It was an interesting read, but overall execution, I don't really know. I didn't really like the ending. So I would give it something like 3 stars. Let me know if you have read this book or if you plan on reading it. All right, friends, the next book that I read in May is a Korean book about contract spouses. It is called The Trunk. And this is one of the rare times that I'm going to just assume that the Netflix show might actually be better than the book because this book was just like very, very awkward. Um, the thing is, it's translated from Korean, and in the acknowledgments, they make it sound like this is like God's gift to like translated literature because 13 translators worked on it. But it is truly one of the most like awkward sounding stories I've ever read. Like, I'll read you a sample. You could like cut the awkwardness with a knife. And this is just like a pet peeve for me when things like are translated and it just like doesn't really flow. But basically, this is a story about this woman who's been working as like a wife for hire in Korea. She's been doing it for years, and she gets called back to be this guy's wife again. Like she's already done it before, and he wants her to do it again. And it's supposed to like uncover like dark secrets about her past. It's supposed to be a thriller, but this is definitely not a thriller. Like there's like a tiny thing that is revealed, but it's yeah, it doesn't feel like a thriller at all. And I guess if I had seen on Goodreads that it's rated like 2.9 out of 5 stars, maybe I wouldn't have read it. But I am still kind of curious about maybe watching the show. And I love me some Gong Yu. So I might end up checking that out, but I really don't recommend reading this book. But it is short, so you could do it and not be tortured that much. But let me just like tell you about how awkward it was. Like there's this scene. Her friend is asking her, "What kind of guys are you into these days?" And she says, "The Gary Oldman type. He's so sexy on a purely physical level that it makes me tremble." And I'll just like put up a picture of the rest of the conversation. Truly like one of the strangest things I have ever read. It makes no sense. So I don't know. Like when I see this, I just think like maybe they shouldn't have translated this because it just sounds so bizarre. Wouldn't recommend. I gave this 2 stars out of 5. Let me know if you've seen the show and if it's worth watching. Okay, talk about another kind of awkward book, but this one did have leave me with some food for thought. Hunchback, which okay, I don't follow like all these book prize type of things, but I know that this was long listed for the Booker Prize or something like that, which is probably what brought it to my attention, just like hearing people talk about it. And I listened to this as an audiobook, and it was only 2 hours long. So, yeah, a little novella by Saou Ichikawa. This is about a woman who has this like muscle disorder, and she needs like around the clock care, and she lives in a like facility, and basically like her physical body like does not match her mental state. Like she dreams of being able to like use her body the way that she wants to, which is for her, like she has this whole other side of her life, like online she writes these explicit stories, and she has this like unhinged Twitter account, and yeah, like you would never guess that like the woman writing all of this stuff is like, in a wheelchair. And so I mean, it was kind of interesting, although really kind of shocking, um, and a little bit uncomfortable. But I guess it was like somewhat of a reminder that like people with physical disabilities like also have needs. And also it brought to my attention that like she talks a lot about like how reading is something that you have to be able-bodied to do, unless it's like an audiobook, I guess. And she talks about how like she can't go to bookstores, and she can't like hold a book in her hands, and that like it hurts to like crane her neck to stare at books. So I guess I hadn't really thought of like reading as like an able-bodied activity. uh so yeah, I don't know, an interesting read. It's kind of hard for me to like rate it, but I didn't really like it that much, so I guess for now like I'd put it at something like 3 stars. Last but not least, the last book that I read in May was a short story called The Novices of Lerna by Angel Bonomini. I did not know that this was written in 1972. Whenever I end up reading a book and then realizing that it's actually kind of old, I feel a little bit like tricked, because I probably wouldn't have picked it up had I known that it was old. Because I don't know, this every time this happens to me, like I don't know, like I don't love like clunky kind of old sounding language, and it was also translated from Spanish, so it just doesn't flow like I guess contemporary books that I'm used to reading most of the time. But it was a short, interesting read. This is about this guy from Argentina. He's like this unambitious scholar, and he gets invited to take a sabbatical, like all expenses paid, in Switzerland. And he's like, well, okay, but he has to do a bunch of weird stuff to get there. Like he has to take photos of like every part of his body and take measurements. And he gets there, and there's like all these rules. And when he arrives, he sees that it's a bunch of doppelgangers of himself. And he's like, what is going on? And they're not allowed to like ask each other questions like, oh, which scholar are you? Because they're like guys from like all over the world. You just like, you have a lot of questions, and it's one of those books that you just know that you're probably not going to get answers. And I'm not giving any spoilers away. This is really just what's written in the synopsis. Like they slowly start dying. Just a really strange book. I can't really say that it was good or bad. I feel like I'm saying that a lot today, but you'll definitely be like interested and curious. So I don't know. Did I like it? Kind of. There's also other short stories in the book. I only read the one after that, something about a fire. But yeah, I just don't really think these kind of stories are for me. It reminded me a lot of another book I read last year called Terramush. I made a video about like weird short stories. If you want to hear more, like if you like strange novellas. Anyway, that's actually everything I read. There were a couple books on my TBR that I didn't get to, but have since read. But I guess I'll talk about them next month. But I'll just give you a little peek at my Libby, if you can even really see it well. I've already read Patricia Wants to Cuddle, and I gave this 5 stars, but I'll be talking about it, I guess, sometime in June. I have a lot of things checked out right now, but I don't know what I really want to get to. I'm definitely going to give this like gardening horror book a try. Eat the Ones You Love. I think it might be about a sentient Venus flytrap that eats people. Not really sure. I might DNF both of these. I don't know. Here's another one I'm really excited about: The Staircase in the Woods. I've just heard that this is like a phenomenal thriller about some friends in the woods. Yeah, we will see. I haven't really decided what else I want to read. I kind of just want to let my mood decide. Well, that's all for today. Thanks so much for joining us. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know if you like this setup. I have a feeling that the sound might not be as good, but it's kind of nice to just have all of the pictures I want to show just available like that, so I don't have to take them from the internet again. Yeah, I hope you guys had a nice reading month. Let me know what you're really excited about reading in June. And Tishka and I will see you next time. It's time to go for a walk. Let's go. Bye. Da-dun, 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 da-dun.